In this video, I'm going to show you how to use OpenZeppelin's monitor software to analyze the Stellar network and track USDC transfers, and then post live updates to a Telegram chat. The tutorial I'm going to be going through is linked to in the description. If we have a look at this first command here, we're going to clone the GitHub repository. This is OpenZeppelin's recently open sourced Open Monitor, and it's used to track EVMs, Stellar blockchains, to do things like track token transfers. You can actually track any kind of function you want. That's all customizable within the monitors. And there's a whole bunch of different supported triggers like Slack notifications, email, Discord, Telegram, webhooks, and custom scripts. So let's go ahead and clone a repository and then use cargo build release. If you get an error there, it might be that you haven't got Rust installed in your system. You'll need to go ahead and install Rust locally. And then once that's built, you have a release version which you can move from target release OpenZeppelin monitor to dot, which is the current directory. And what that's going to do is it's allow us to use this OpenZeppelin monitor software that's been built with the config files within the main root directory. If we go into that directory now, you should end up with something like this. And you can see we've got the OpenZeppelin monitor file we just built and moved in there. And then we've got this config directory. We have to edit 4 files, 1 in each directory. So we go into networks first, and we've got this stellar mainnet.json.example. And what we're going to do here is edit the file name and rename it .json rather than .json.example. And that's going to load the file when the program first starts up. Go back to the config. We'll next go into monitors. Now you can see I've already edited the stellar swapdex.json example and I've renamed it USDC.transfer. I've modified the contract address here, which we can get from Stellar Expert. If we go to the main Stellar Expert, it's got a list of assets here. If we go to USDC, we can then click here on this Soroban contract, and we can use this contract address here, CCW. This will match this. And then we need the signature of the function that we want to track. So in this case, we're using transfer. In production, you might also track transfer from, but to get this, we are going to be using a Stellar client. So there's instructions for this in the tutorial as well. I'm going to copy and paste some code. So I'm using Stellar contract info interface. This command is going to take that contract address and it's going to pass out the interface which is stored on the chain. So if we do that now, we can see we've got allowance, authorize, approve, balance, burn, all the functions you'd expect within a token contract. We've got the transfer and transfer from functions. The first input variable, the env, is the global environment for Soroban, so we don't need to worry about that. The only thing we need to worry about is the from, to, and amount, and these are types address, and 128 integer. You can see we've matched that here in the signature, so we've got transfer, address, and I128. We've then got some custom trigger conditions. I found that taking these out actually stopped the program working, so I left them in and I just modified the file. So if we go into config and then filters, we've got stellar filter block number.shell. What it's originally done was it only monitored blocks that were even and it ignored blocks that were odd. And all I've done is take out the if-else statement and I've passed it as true for everything. So it kind of bypasses it. There's probably a more elegant way of doing that, but for me, this is the only way I could get it to work. Finally, in that monitor file, we also have the triggers. We're calling Stellar USDC Telegram. As you guess, this matches up with a trigger in the trigger folder, Stellar USDC Telegram. And we need a token and a chat ID here, which we're going to get in a second. This is going to pass a message to the Telegram chat with the title USDC transfer notification, the monitor name, which is in the monitor section, USDC transfer, and then the link to the block explorer with the transaction hash. So you can click on that to get more information. So let's open up Telegram now. We're going to have a chat with this botfather guy. There's a link in the description, t.me/botfather. Or you can just open up a chat with botfather, and we're going to send a command which is /help, which will display this message, and then we could do a new bot. So let's go ahead and create a new bot. Choose a name for your bot. I'm going to call this Stellar USDC transfers. So I'm going to call this Stellar USDC bot. And we've got this access token here. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste that into my config file. Obviously, this is like an API key, so don't share it. It's particularly not in a YouTube video. I will be deleting this afterwards. Then the other thing we need is a chat ID. Now you could potentially get this to chat into a communal group, but what I want to do is get it to chat directly with myself. So for that, I need my own personal ID for Telegram. For this, there's another bot, and it's just user info bot. Open that in a web account, and as soon as you click start, it will give you a ID number 538786120. I can paste that into the chat ID. And that means it's going to message me directly. Before I do that, I also need to give the bot permission to message me. So I'm going to click on it and I'm just going to click start, type test, and that should be all ready to go. Let's save that config file. Then we're going to go back into Windows Subsystem for Linux. Let's clear this. Let's change the directory to OpenZeppelin monitor. I'm going to run /OpenZeppelin monitor. Let me zoom out a little bit so we've got all this on the same line. Now, one thing to note is that when a monitor condition is triggered, it won't actually fire something into this console log. So there's no way of knowing except if your trigger is actually working. So the first notification it will get that something's working is that messages are going to start popping up into this Telegram chat. Let's wait a few minutes for some USDC to move around, and then hopefully we should get some notifications. And there we have it. You can see some notifications come through now for Stellar USDC transfers. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you want to learn more about the OpenZeppelin monitor, then there's that tutorial that's linked in the description. There's also a post to the GitHub repository. Thank you to OpenZeppelin for creating and open sourcing this software, and thank you to you guys for watching. Take care.